Whenever someone starts reading about the Adeptus Custodes, the 10,000 golden guardians of the God Emperor himself, they read all about their amazing achievements and apparently unbeatable combat skills. Some say that a dozen custodians can kill a Primarch. Others say that the 10,000 slaughtered billions of chaos demons during the Horus heresy, and some even say that they never failed in a single task. That if the Adeptus Custodes go to a battlefield, the Imperium already writes it off as a golden victory. But for being the dedicated guardians of the Emperor of Mankind, their liege seems awfully dead. Almost as if they failed in the protection of their King of Ages. That canonically, they failed at the only thing they were designed for, to protect the Emperor. Why else would they be called the Custodians? Well, what if I told you? The Custodes did not fail in their duty. Not only did the Emperor plan for his possible defeat at the hands of Horus, but he needed his trusted guardians to be as far away as possible. He needed the Primarchs to believe that they had failed, and that even the Custodians themselves had to rethink what their true purpose was, now that the Emperor had turned into the Carrion Lord of the Imperium. As this video has a lot of sources to get to the right conclusions, all books, novellas and short stories used will be shown in the bottom left hand corner throughout the video, making it easy to see where all information came from, and so you can read these awesome novels for yourself, in case you want to learn even more about the Adeptus Custodes. All that and a whole lot more in today's video. Also, if you like these kind of videos, consider becoming a channel member. First members only lore video is going live in about a week, and in the next couple of days, I will be opening the official members only Discord for those who want to discuss the lore with me and my community, and want to help choose which video I'll be making next. Alright, enough talking, let's get into the lore. It is said that the Custodes are the Emperor's greatest creation, that when the Master of Mankind began his grand plan to pull humanity out of old night and birth the fledgling Imperium, these were the first warriors who stood by his side. They were his golden bodyguards, creations of true purpose and an unshakable fate. Those who stood by his side at every battle acted as his heralds and portrayed themselves as his emissaries. Their skill and strength are without equal, yet their greatest duty was to protect the physical body of the Emperor, no matter the cost. As his bodyguards, the Custodians have perfected the trade of security for possibly over 12,000 years. Not a single soul enters the Imperial Palace without their knowledge. And since the fall of the Emperor, it is the 10,000 who have stood vigil every single day. 300 dedicated companions remain within the throne room and guard its every threshold at every moment. An entire shield host is dedicated to protect the Sol system itself, and another entire host defends the Emperor's most dangerous weapons and enemies within the dark cells below the Imperial Palace. Yet for all the greatness of the Custodes, for all their martial might, they still failed in protecting the Master of Mankind, beloved by all, from the threat that was Horus Lupercal. But what could the Custodes have done against Horus, a Primarch who transcended into a literal god? At the Emperor's command, the Custodes laid waste to all of his enemies, both mortal and immortal. When he needed the impossible done to hold back the greatest army to ever beset humanity, did the Emperor turn to his Primarchs or Angels of Death? No, as Diocletian notes, he turned to his private army, his talents. And the duty of the talents of the Emperor goes far beyond the protection of his body. But to face Horus Lupercal, favored son, war master and arch-traitor, was something no mortal or demigod could ever survive. The immortal Alanius Bias would be annihilated when facing down Horus Ascended. Even Sanguinius the Angel would die at his brother's hand. What were the Custodians to do against such a being? If it were up to the Emperor, nothing. Some joined him to help him reach the bridge, but he knew they did not have to be there during the duel. And in this, the Custodians' true strength shines. Not in their duty as guardians, or what they believed was right, but in the strength of their spirits and belief in the Emperor's true plan, which he refers to as the Golden Path. Horus did come close to breaking the Companions, but as Terra lay in shambles and the galaxy was burning, did only the Custodians truly stand firm, broken in heart but not in soul, and along with those few loyal Primarchs that remained at their father's side, they helped keep the Imperium alive for over 10,000 years. While the Imperial Guard, Sisters of Battle, Adeptus Astartes, and myriad other forces of the Imperium fight across 1,000,000 worlds against impossible odds, the Custodians have acted only when the threats against the Imperium were at their worst. From Constantine Valdor to Trajan Valoris, the Custodes have mourned the physical death of the Emperor, but they have kept his vision alive. They have kept his purpose alive. Especially now with the return of Robute Guilliman within the 42nd millennium, the Custodes walk the galaxy once more. They no longer lock themselves to Terra, the edicts of restraint have been lifted, and once again, citizens and nobles alike are awestruck by their sudden reappearance. But with this recent lore, the same problem as during the Horus heresy has arisen. Robute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, current regent of the Imperium, has a squad of Custodes assigned to be his bodyguards. And once again, they cannot keep up with him. They cannot truly protect him. Is this another failure? Well, with that dramatic intro out of the way, let's take a look at the true purpose of the Custodians. Because, believe it or not, contrary to everything we just covered, the Custodes are guardians, but mainly are more scholars, protectors of culture, and reminders of the Emperor's true plan. Let's get into it. The Custodes are so much more than just custodians. They are a literal gathering of demigods. Back during the Unification Wars, their duties included being the noble emissaries, standing by their king as he asked the techno-barbarian warlords to surrender to his newly established rule. But the Custodes were also merciless executioners. Some of the greatest battles the Thunder Warriors fought were announced with the firing of a single guardian spear into the air. Some Custodes, like Sagittarius, were so cruel that they would strike a prisoner for so much as daring to speak out against the master of mankind. And when his enemies were to be executed, Sagittarius would present their decapitated heads to a massive crowd in screaming victory. When the Emperor needed an enemy killed, whether it was in open war or through covert assassination, the Custodes proved to be his most reliable tool. When the war in the Webway began, because Magnus did something wrong at the onset of the Horus heresy, the task of holding back the countless forces of the Chaos Gods was one shared by the Custodes, Sisters of Silence, Ordo Sinister, and only the most trusted elements of the Martian Mechanicum. With the 10,000 at their head, these forces bled for every inch and city conquered by chaos. Yet while all of this was happening, the likes of Rogel Dorn raged at this blatant favoritism. Why were the Imperial Fists not unleashed within the Webway? Were the Sons of Dorn not good enough to meet the horrors of chaos with bolter and blade? Were the Custodes really the right choice? The answer is yes. Rogaldorn is a master of the material realm, where his advanced mind can understand anything and everything. He is the certainty of stone made into a living being. The warp, on the other hand, is the very stuff of chaos. It is something so alien that the Praetorian of Terra would drive himself insane if he tried to master it like he did the material universe. So the task of fighting the greatest war humanity ever faced was given over to the soulless hunters of the Silent Sisterhood and the overwhelming power of the Ordo Sinister, being led by the Golden Guardians. As established before, the Custodes are unshakable in their loyalty on a genetic and even soul-based level. They guard the deepest secrets of the Imperium, and they know many of the Emperor's and Malcador's unspoken truths. Custodians excel at espionage, diplomacy, and the art of war, not because they were designed to be soldiers, but because the Emperor needed them to be his companions. The Master of Mankind never had an equal within this galaxy. He was far beyond even the capabilities of the Perpetuals. Hell, even Malcador struggled to keep up with his lightning-fast intellect and persistent stream of future visions. While the Primarchs could spar words with their father for a moment, the Custodians were ultimately the ones he turned to when he needed honest opinions. They may have been loyal, but they were not yes-men. They were critics, and through that, truly understood his visions and intentions. As this is really important when trying to understand why the Custodians did not fill in their duties, let's take a look at the Carrion Lord of the Imperium short story in Era of Ruin, when 300 Custodians disagreed with the Emperor on the idea of creating the Primarchs. In a way, they already saw what was coming. They balanced out the Emperor's inherent wish to rush. "Humans, the people," says Constantine, who is never first to speak and often the last. His face isn't bleached of emotion tonight. The masquerade has no place here. It's a performance for other audiences, nor is his voice the stern and stoic baritone of a being expecting his lessers to hear and obey. There's passion in his tone. He means what he's saying. "The people of the Imperium." This is an argument they've all heard before. Many of them agree with it. Aemon nods in the wake of Valder's words. When any of the 10,000 speak, the Emperor always deigns to hear their words. But the 300 are granted indulgences even beyond that. Rank and battle honors mean nothing. None of them has ever really known what qualities they possess that brought them into the Emperor's innermost circle. They know only that they are the chosen of the chosen. The 10,000 shall lead the armies of the Imperium into battle. The others speak too, all of them. Their protests and promises echo through the Grand Chamber, over a syncopated backbeat of machines drilling their way through the dimensional barrier. Diocletian listens to them all, though his eyes never leave his king. He feels strange being here with only his kindred in gold, though he doesn't know why. The truth is, he's not alone in this sensation. When every objection has been made and every alternate path suggested, the Custodians fall silent. The Emperor turns to the only one of the 300 that has not yet spoken. "Diocletian," he says, in a voice that his false sons will one day say is kind, unkind, angry and calm, no matter its pitch and tone. To Diocletian, he just sounds tired. Dio isn't sure what to say. He lacks Constantine's soulful composure, or Ammon's gift for abrupt rhetoric, or Ra's poetic sincerity. He worries, in his quiet moments, if he is worthy of inclusion within the 300. He wonders if his king made a mistake by appointing him. Everyone is watching him, waiting for him to speak, waiting for him to join the chorus of oaths that their blades will be enough, that the custodians will lead the armies of the Imperium into battle, and that those armies will be human, not legions or transhumans, not led by godling generals, that all this work, all these machines are unnecessary. You don't need to do this, he could say. You don't need to steal the warp's essence. You don't need to create these things, these Primarchs. Diocletian tells the truth, as he always does to the Emperor, as they always all do. It's just that tonight, his truth is different to theirs. I don't think it matters what I say. Dio leans on his spear and inclines his head to the Emperor. I don't think it matters what any of us say. With respect, my king, I think you're going to do it anyway. Among the Custodes, there are a number of them who hold a unique relationship with the Emperor. Constantine Valdor is the Captain General. He is the closest companion and most trustworthy confidant anyone could ever ask for. Even when the siege of Terra was at its height, Valdor was still hesitant to call Sanguinius and Dorn his brothers, but he did form some kind of love for them. Another custodian, like Ra and Dimian, was trusted with the secrets of the Emperor's early life, given visions of the rise and fall of many human empires, so that he would understand the importance of why Dracnian had to be shackled. Diocletian, however, was here for another reason. The Emperor and Diocletian shared a blunt honesty, and the Emperor appreciated that. As we have seen, Diocletian knew the Emperor would go on with his decision, no matter what the Custodes would say. But when the Webway project was utterly ruined, Diocletian asked what would happen next, and the Emperor told him that he did not know. Words that no custodian had ever heard before or after. When Diocletian suggested once they killed Horus, all that had been lost could be rebuilt, the master of mankind had his doubts, and bluntly told Diocletian that he did not think he would be there to see it. Which perfectly leads us into the death of the Emperor. Well, his physical death. His body broken. Let's take a look at how this actually happened, and if the custodians truly failed in their duty. The death of the Emperor is perhaps the greatest tragedy to have ever befallen mankind. I have covered the fight between Horus and the Emperor extensively in both my How Strong is the Emperor and How Strong is God Horus videos. Links will be in the description in case you wanna watch those videos after this one, as we go into quite a lot of detail. But it is time to look at this duel from the perspective of the Custodes. Operation Anabasis is described as a suicide mission from the very start. To Constantine Valdor, he does not care if the shields of the Vengeful Spirit were lowered by accident due to a power failure or because it was a trap. This one moment of weakness is the only chance the Loyalists have at attacking Horus directly. So the greatest warriors who still stand on Terra gather. Rogel Dorn joined by his Huskarls, Sanguinius by his Sanguinary Guard, and the Emperor by his Heteron Guard. They teleport aboard the Vengeful Spirit, but what they encounter is so much worse than a trap. It is a conversion chamber to turn loyalist men into chaos-induced monsters. The Vengeful Spirit and most of the solar system are in the warp. Horus has created a living hell masquerading as a paradise. First, Horus turns the companions against their master, forcing their blades against him. Those who fall weep as they fight the King of Ages, who in turn mourns the loss of every custodian he has to now personally kill. Horus did not corrupt these Custodes, he completely unmade them and puppeted them for his own enjoyment. After this, the Emperor and his few surviving companions walk straight into another trap. Even the Emperor finds it hard to distinguish what is true and untrue. While he can find his focus, the same cannot be said for the Heteron. One by one, the custodians die. Statues that mimic them in absolute perfection, killing them the moment anyone blinks. It feels like they are falling into heaven. But as Andelon suddenly sinks into a wall, the Emperor calls out. The Golden Group focuses up, and suddenly, they are in hell. The spirits that stalk the Dark Room attack. The Chaos Gods need every single Heteron vanquished. Each warrior is one of insane skill and unbreakable determination, and the ruinous powers cannot risk them standing by the King of Ages in his final battle against Horus Ascended. The Master of Mankind found himself forced to protect those who were designed to protect him. The Chaos Gods sought to turn the last bastion of loyalty that remained against the Emperor, but instead he showed them why he is the King of Ages. The Chaos Gods were burned with their own power, as the Emperor's bare hands gripped the warp and he blasted their own soul stuff back at them. Now, only 7 companions remain, all empowered by their master's indomitable will. Only one of these survivors, Custodes Dusk, Heteron Proconsul, would stay by the Emperor's side until the very last moment, witnessing something no custodian was meant to see: the fall of his Emperor against the arch-traitor. The Proconsul feels the Emperor's pain as if it were his own, and in a moment of near mental collapse, he does something unthinkable and shows us why the Chaos Gods needed all of the custodians dead, as seen in The End in the Death Volume 3. The Emperor cannot move. He is pinned by slow, incinerating death. He refuses to scream or voice his pain. He will not give Horus that satisfaction, but he cannot move, except to writhe and spasm. He cannot move, but Custodes can. Fueled by pain and rage and desperation, the Proconsul breaks from his trance and hurls himself at Horus. His bolter shells, blasting from the mount of his Paragon spear, reach Horus first, detonating against the first found thigh and hip. The weapon's blade, swung in an expert address, strikes an instant later. Horus turns, surprised by the Heteron's assault. Custodes hacks and thrusts, driving his spear against the serpent's scales. Horus shifts his maul to smash his attacker aside. He continues to pour energy into his father's body. He has not finished. He will not be interrupted. Then Mourn It All bites. Leto comes at the first found from another angle, adding his borrowed blade to the Proconsul's valiant efforts. Horus roars, his rage shakes the psychofractal darkness of the court. Still he burns power down into his father. Then Rubio's sword, star bright with the Emperor's will, slices into him too. Loken does not hesitate, his gauntlet still red with the angel's blood. He slashes the blade at his father's plate, every blow a killing blow, every blow a lethal strike, every blow, raining at the War Master from each one of the 3, would be a conquering blow from any other day. The stroke of a master warrior that would fell and slay any opponent. Except this opponent is past slaying. He is deathless and unkillable. The undivided power of chaos has inured him against mortal harm, and that which does not kill him simply makes him angry. Still the 3 blades land, a furious onslaught that cracks skills and scores plate. Horus turns to them and strikes at Loken first, but Leto knocks him aside and the Proconsul willingly accepts the blow. Custodes moves, driving his spear blade against the talon to turn the blast aside. The arc of power goes wide. It scorches Loken and Leto as it passes over them and scalds their flesh inside their plate. It blasts a deep and molten trench in the floor of the court. The infinite architecture of the War Master's sanctum shivers and shifts to repair its sepulchre black form. Horus thrusts forward. Custodes strikes him again from the right. The War Master smashes him aside without a second look, intent upon his son. The proconsul tumbles away, a discarded toy, Presidium shield shattered, and the Quillen plate torn. Loken gets to his feet as Leto finds his. He turns to face his father. The War Master is an onrushing avalanche of darkness. The claws rise, power wells to roast his son to cinders. The baleful lightning arcs out and envelops Loken and Leto both. They do not die, they stand, bemused, as the hate and power, black as old night and threaded with warp flux, crackles around them with absolute vehemence, yet held at bay. Horus lowers his hand and the lightning stops. He turns. The Emperor lowers his hand, dissolving the mind shield that prevented the immolation of his two warriors. He is standing. His golden breastplate is scorched black and his cloak is charred. Blood runs down from his nose and the corner of his lip. His war sword rises in his hand, and an asterism of white light flares like a rising sun behind his crowned head. He moves toward his son with the lustral wrath of a supernova. Although Leto and Loken both stand with the proconsul, he was the first to move. He was the first to wound Horus. Together, they bought the Emperor a moment to recover, to gather his strength and continue fighting Horus. What is utterly insane, however, is the fact that the Aquilon Terminator armor stopped Horus's lightning. It cracked the breastplate and tore apart the shield. But the proconsul was only mortally wounded when he was struck by Worldbreaker right after. This is the same power Horus used to almost insta-kill the Emperor during the opening of their fight. This custodian essentially held off a goddamn chaos-empowered Kamehameha. As Horus and the Emperor collide once again, there is so much force unleashed that it sends the three remaining warriors flying. The proconsul, even in death, has decided he will keep serving. Custodes gets back up. He has given his life once already for his King of Ages. He will give it again. Spear in hand, he approaches an impossible storm of rod and blades. Custodes is a heteron. He will not watch. He will not look away. He will fight and die 1,000 times if that is what it takes. As Horus beats the Emperor again and again and once more prepares the perfect murder stroke, Custodes stands back up. The proconsul declares that by his will alone does the Imperium defy Horus. Courage is Custodes' only weapon. The defiance of this single heteron guard is enough to make Horus pause. Horus sighs and slowly turns to the custodian. From the red eye on his chest, he fires a beam of searing bloodlight. The custodian trembles, his spear slowly falling. Horus gets angrier, and only once he recites all 620 names of the proconsul does the warrior finally truly die. The combination of sigillite magic and imbued willpower has protected him far longer than it should have. But once again, the custodian has bought time for his king. The Emperor has time to rise again. Of course, we know the outcome. The Emperor destroys Horus's soul, as shown in Era of Ruin, and then the Emperor collapses, a sliver away from true death. He uses the tarot cards to send his last message, to communicate that he has to be put upon the golden throne to survive his injuries, and become the Carrion Lord of the Imperium. But how did the Adeptus Custodes react to the death of the Emperor? Neither Valdor nor Diocletian were there to witness his death, but they both, alongside the surviving Custodes, mourned, grieved, and changed forever. Out of the remaining couple thousand, it was only Valdor who refused to give up right after the heresy. He spent months away in his personal chamber to contemplate what to do next. He spoke to Rus and put the Primarch's pain to rest, reminding him that many more sagas had to be told. Through this, Valdor seems to have found his own purpose, and maybe Russ has as well, possibly giving us an answer to why both have disappeared for over 10 millennia. But I'm getting off topic. Valdor was the first to realize his meaning in this new Imperium, but for the other Custodes, it took many centuries to realize their new and true purpose. In the meantime, they mourned. They stored away their armor, wore only a black helmet and robes of mourning, and only did the basic duties demanded of them. Some custodians became bitter, others became angry, but some became more human, as if trying to recreate what the Emperor would have done for them, as seen in Era of Ruin. A beggar child bars his path, gazing up at him with amazed eyes. Diocletian remembers a time long ago by his measurement of things, and practically prehistorical to the pilgrims and beggars surrounding him, when he'd been here with Zephan, the bringer of sorrow, and another child stood before them in a similar way. So much time has passed since then, so much has changed. "Are you the God Emperor?" the child asks. Past and present collide. Diocletian's throat closes. He goes down to one knee, still towering above the youth. He can see the gold of his warplate reflecting in the child's eyes. "No," Diocletian tells the boy. "My name is Dio, but I know the Emperor." He unbuckles his scarlet cloak, marked with the Palatine Aquila, the Emperor's own symbol. He bundles it up and hands it to the filthy child, who takes it in trembling hands. Perhaps it will serve this boy as a blanket for the rest of a long life. Perhaps the child will be killed by jealous relic hunters. Diocletian knows which is more likely in this new dark age, but he hopes he's wrong to think it. Although the cynicism of Diocletian never left him, he has become willing to show kindness for the first time. Having lived through the Horus heresy and the trauma of losing his leader has somehow made Diocletian more human. And perhaps it is through this that the custodians have managed to heal from the tragedy of the Emperor's death. Dio also notes how empty the 10,000 feel without Ra, Valdor, and so many of the others. In the aftermath of the Siege of Terra, the Custodes are at their absolute lowest, but as time passes, they begin to rise once more, and the vision of the Emperor's golden path slowly begins to re-emerge. So yeah, the custodians feel like they failed, but at the same time, this perceived failure has made them even better than what they were with their living Emperor. In a way, the Emperor's failure with Horus was the true mistake. Whatever the custodians did, it would not have mattered. They had to keep his vision going. They had to be what he never could be, a leader to humanity. I would also love to share the Primarchs' opinions on this subject, but my researcher and I have searched extensively for sources on it. Unfortunately, it seems that Games Workshop has chosen to reserve this information for the upcoming Scouring Book series. Once those exciting new novels are released, I will create a video discussing what the Primarchs themselves thought about the loss of their father, as right now, we canonically have no clue. For now, let's move on to what a true failure for a custodian actually is, as this also properly shows that the custodians, indeed, did not actually fail their emperor, and have been doing a great job. Let's take a look at Valerian. Now, for those who are familiar with the custodian named Valerian, you will know that this guy is fully convinced that he is a failure, and he is usually brought up in arguments about this exact subject. as to why the Custodes failed in their one duty. For those who don't know who he was, Valerian was a shield captain, and it was believed the Emperor chose him to join the companions and stand vigil inside the throne room. This is the singular highest honor any custodian could receive. And while Valerian was eager to take up this duty, he failed in his trials. When the gates to the throne room opened, Valerian's body refused to obey and permit him entrance. Valerian took this failure in the worst way possible. He returned to his regular duties, yet his sleep was disturbed. Every time he blinked or even remembered the event, he felt undeserving of being a custodian. Valerian's view of the Adeptus Custodes changed. They were no longer worthy of being the Emperor's guardians. To him, the Custodes were an order of failure upon failure, a group of warriors who only knew glory during the creation of the Imperium and the dark days of the Horus heresy. As Valerian reads Diocletian's book, The Master of Mankind, he hopes to find answers. It wasn't until another custodian, a dear friend named Navraderan, spoke to him until he changed his view, as seen in Watchers of the Throne, Emperor's Legion. It tells me that our service was not always like this. We were not always fighting with silence. Valerian turned a page of the 5,000-year-old copy of Master of Mankind. Navraderan nodded. And yet, even then, there was error. With greater excuse. Was there? We have become too used to regret, I think. We have become too used to thinking that the time before was so much greater than our own. And yet, you are reading Diocletian. You can see that even before the failure, there were doubts. When I think what has been lost, then you do not remember what has been gained. Navraderan placed a heavy gauntlet on the polished wood. They lived in a time of plenty, and we in a time of strife. Consider how much greater our fate must be compared to theirs. The words did not comfort Valerian, but he could not wholly disagree. I could not pass. I saw what lay within, and I could not pass. What does it mean? Take it as a sign you are unworthy, and you only harm yourself. We are so ready to believe that we are not good enough. Because once, 10,000 years ago, we were faced with an impossible task, and we performed better than any could have ever demanded. Do you know, there is some advantage to spending time outside this place? I have met men with no discernible talent who believe themselves kings. I have met the sick who think themselves healthy, the wicked who think themselves righteous. They are so weak, all of them, weak as chaff. Yet they do not torture themselves with our doubt. They live, they squabble, they laugh, they blaspheme, and I have come to think that this, somehow, is the greatest sense of all. Valerian could not help but smile. You will go back out there, then. I find it invigorating, more so than these places. Valerian disagreed. He found a library to bring him great peace against the ever-shifting outside universe. Go in his will then. As you, brother. Valerian and Navraderan clasped hands. And do not read too much. Valerian and Navraderan offer us two different insights into the Custodes. Valerian sees the failure, the tragedy, and still lives in the shadow of the Emperor's death. Navraderan sees the greatest chance ever, the true power held within the Custodes. Valdor, Diocletian, and the 10,000 of the Great Crusade and Horus heresy fought during an age when the Imperium was at its strongest. Half of the Legiones Astartes turned traitor, but the other half remained loyal. The Imperial army fought with untold trillions of soldiers. The Martian Mechanicum had its own schism, but hundreds of Titan legios stood by the Emperor. When Horus came to Terra, he faced a mere 1,000 Custodes, but with them stood the Blood Angels, Imperial Fists and White Scars. While 3 legions could never beat 9, time was running out for Horus. Robute Guilliman was coming, and he had brought the entirety of the Segmentum Ultima to come and fight Horus. And what do the Custodes of the 41st millennium fight with? The Adeptus Mechanicus is a shadow of the glory of Mars. The Imperial Guard and Navy have become nothing more than cannon fodder, with the greatest of the old Imperial army lost to them. The Adeptus Astartes have become mutilated and brainwashed child soldiers, warriors fighting in accordance with a 10,000-year-old codex. And the Imperium has more enemies than ever before. The forces of chaos harass the Imperium at every opportunity. The Black Legion strikes out from the Eye of Terror, and the Red Corsairs have turned the Maelstrom into a nightmare. Orcs rampage across the galaxy unchecked. Tyranids consume worlds by the dozens, and the Necrons are reawakening. The Imperium is besieged on all sides. Its enemies within and without are legion, and the Custodes still serve with the same unshakable loyalty and determination as that of Constantine Valdor, Diocletian, and Ra Endymion. They are not failures. They are the heroes for holding on to that original glory. They are the living proof that the Imperium can be made into the Emperor's true vision. But what have the Custodes been doing in the last 10,000 years to fulfill this dream? Essentially, what have they been doing to make sure that their supposed failure did not turn into an actual failure? Although the Adeptus Custodes did not take part in the scouring after the Horus heresy, they did continue to serve, albeit more secretly, and as mentioned before, in both black armor and robes for multiple centuries. During the War of the Beast, they struck down a force of Eldar Harlequins seeking entrance to the throne room. The Custodes ruthlessly put down any rebellion that dared to get out of hand upon the holy surface of Terra, such as the Siege of the Eternity Gate, where the Custodes obliterated the cult of the Hedonic Lord and slaughtered billions of Terran inhabitants. After a decade-long blood game, the Custodes also discovered a root which would later be used by a Dark Elder assassin known as the Blade of Patesh. The blade would be caught and killed by the Custodes when attempting to break in. But outside of Terra, what else have the Custodes been up to? Well, the Shadowkeepers destroyed the Space Hulk known as the Ominous Gift. Why and how remains a mystery to the wider Imperium, but the then Captain General Aesalt Kumadra and the High Lords of Terra had to overrule the objections of the Imperial Navy. On another occasion, the Aquilan shield arrived and prevented the execution of Cadian Lieutenant Natashan. With the Aquilan shield by his side, Natashan's unusual tactics and bodyguards saw him rise to the rank of Imperial Warmaster. As Warmaster, Natashan destroyed the Orkwag Daxkrag before it could ever reach Terra. Yet the Custodians never rescinded the execution order of Natashan. The Warmaster was executed for his crimes from many years past. Between the Shadowkeepers, Dreadhost, Aquilan Shield, and Emissaries Imperatus, the Custodes have remained active in the entire galaxy. Small squads to sometimes entire shield hosts deployed in the shadows, ensuring the Emperor's will was done throughout Imperial history. During the 8th Black Crusade, the Emissaries Imperatus managed to negotiate a strike force of Adeptus Mechanicus, Minotaurs, and the Dreadhost to unite and destroy the traitor-captured strongholds in the Andromax system. The Custodes have prevented many dark plots from both the forces of chaos and those within the Imperium, such as when Shield Captain Tibinus Lancilius hunted down the High Lord Seneca and a group of Taurian Inquisitors who intended to starve the Emperor of the 1,000 psychers needed to sustain him. However, not every era for the Custodes has been as productive. Captain General Galahad was notoriously stagnant. This stagnancy would even spell the doom for Galahod's successor, Captain General Launcedre, who died after being betrayed by a subsect of Doomscryers. Only when Captain General Trajan Valoris rose to the occasion did the Custodes know of an era of proactiveness. Now that Roboute Guilliman has returned, the Custodes set out into the galaxy with numbers never seen before. And all of this does not even begin to mention the role of the Eyes of the Emperor, who have created vast spy networks and fight counterinsurgencies against the greatest threats of mankind. The Eyes act in accordance with what they see fit, having retired from their duty as a custodian, but not in their oaths to the Emperor. Some present themselves as inquisitors, others as cult demagogues. Some even take the fight to their enemies directly, commanding planets or armies to defy those who dare to raise their weapons against the God Emperor of mankind. One group, known as the Eyes Unblinded, have even retained their golden armor and weapons, with which they outright hunt and exterminate traitors and Xenos alike. The Emperor created his Custodes to continue their duty even in death, and they have never failed their King of Ages. So let's combine all the information I have covered in this video into an easy to understand and cohesive answer. Let's take a look at whether the Custodes failed or succeeded in their duties. In their every duty, the Custodes have been tested. On occasion, they have tasted bitter defeat, but they have never been found wanting. The Custodes did not fail. They fulfilled their exact purpose, and even when it was the Emperor who failed himself, they stood by their King of Ages with zero doubts. The Custodes never liked the Primarchs or the Astartes, yet when called upon to fight besides them, they still do so. On rare occasions, the Custodes and Astartes have formed bonds of friendship and trust. The Imperium has stood upon the brink of destruction 1,000 times over, but through the combined efforts of humans, abhumans, Astartes and Custodes, has the Imperium survived for 10,000 years. The Age of Darkness is a long and dark chapter in the Imperium's history, a tragedy that could have been so much worse if the Custodians had truly failed in their duty. The defiance of Kekalta's dusk was one so fierce that it makes you wonder how the fight between Horus and the Emperor would have ended if there were more than one companion present. The Custodes have bled themselves dry in the name of the Emperor's vision, and they have never truly failed. The very gods of chaos recognized the threat present in the Heteron who joined the Anabasis operation. The 10,000 have more than earned their place besides the Emperor, come hell or high water. In every way imaginable, the Custodes did what the Emperor expected of them. They never questioned or doubted their master. As advisors, they spoke out against him, voiced their honest opinions, and when the Emperor disagreed with them, they still followed him. He is the master of mankind, beloved by all, but to the Custodes, he is their King of Ages. And now that the Imperium finds itself in the Era Indomitus, a time of great calamity, but also the first time in 10,000 years that mankind has any hope to cling to, the Custodes have stepped out from the shadows. Gone are the days of sudden decapitation strikes, the breaking of a threat not fully realized. Now is an era where the Custodes wage open war once again. During the dark days of the Horus heresy, the 10,000 found themselves shackled to Terra, but no more. Terra remains threatened by the forces of chaos and the rampaging hordes of the Fourth Tyrannic War. But for as long as the Custodes continue their duty, the Imperium will stand. And for as long as the Custodes live, the Emperor's original vision has a chance of being fulfilled. But what do you think of all of this? Would you say the Legio Custodes failed in their duty to protect their King of Ages? Or was this planned from the start? That simply put, there was no chance to save the Emperor of Mankind. He had to win his duel by himself, and they succeeded by taking care of his broken body and protecting him for over 10 millennia. Let me know your comments, concerns, suggestions, theories and ideas down in the comment section below. If you think I deserved it with this video, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It helps push this video into the algorithm and it would make me very happy. Thank you for watching and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye bye.